In readings such as No Name Woman and The Merchant in Venice, it's evident that society has favored men over women for as long as we can remember. While I don't think that either sex should be endowed with any sort of social predominance over the other, I do believe that there is a difference between men and women, and it should be manifested on a socio-economic level. However, this has to be done in such a way that acknowledges the strengths of both sexes, but doesn't assert power or privilege to either one. One of the most controversial aspects of this topic is whether there is even a difference between men and women, and the answer to that question is yes. The psychological processes in the female brain operate drastically differently than those in the male brain. While this doesn't necessarily make them less physically able than men, it does differentiate them in regards to the ways they think, which in turn exhibits differences in their behavior. In this neurological representation of the male and female brains, we can see that the patterns of connections formed within the brain are different. These connections between neurons in the brain, called synapses, dictate the way the organism functions. Hence, any slight difference between the patterns will cause a significant difference in behavior. Needless to say, there is and always will be a wide range of outliers in the respective brains of men and women that exhibits qualities in men that are typical in women, and vice versa. However, ignoring such extraneous cases, the natural neural networks activated by the male brain are innately different than those activated in the female brain. While there are also biological differences between the two sexes, studies have shown that they fail to provide any universal logic behind male behavior. This kind of evidence lies within male and female cognition. The biological distinctions between men and women are not the primary cause of their difference in natural capabilities. Cognitive processes in men are performed differently than in women, which leads to the difference in their behavior to be noted as stereotypically male or female. Cognitive ability will inevitably determine how an organism thinks and behaves, thus exemplifying the difference between the two sexes. Some of the differences between men and women could actually produce economic and social benefits if they weren't seen as discrimination against either sex in the workplace. This graph shows that there are certain jobs that men and women consciously decide not to apply for. We can see that the statistics behind who chooses not to apply are based on the guidelines about who should apply, and almost twice as many women choose not to apply than men. This is because the workplace has succumbed to society's mentality that men perform almost any task better than women because of physical capabilities, or because they are less emotionally attached to the task at hand. The workplace needs to realize that there are just some fields in which women will perform better than men, and some in which men will perform better than women. This biological fact cannot be modified by gender quotas in the workplace intended to decrease gender discrimination. Identifying these differences in society is considered sexist and prejudicial against women. While gender shouldn't be the reason that you hire someone, it shouldn't be the reason that you don't hire someone. An applicant's sex should be considered as a potential benefactor to the job and as a reason for hiring them, because they have an innate aptitude to certain tasks better than does the other sex. This distinction between sex and looking for certain qualities for a job has come to be known as discriminatory and sexist, which has led to the implementation of gender quotas in the workplace. The differences between men and women should be acknowledged by society and used to its benefit, rather than be used as a statistic to instantiate ultimately detrimental gender quotas in the workplace. Gender quotas in the workplace were instantiated to decrease the prominence of gender discrimination. However, it's aimed at employers that hire more men than women, simply because it's common knowledge that women make less money than men and are less easily hired. While this most definitely needs to be corrected, gender quotas are not the way to do so. They're aimed to correct acts considered discriminatory that actually are not. They're simply the most pragmatic move for the employer.
I've been very public about the fact that I think that quotas are awful for us, but in many ways may be a necessary thing to do to get different places jump-started. They may very well be an important way to jump-start, but none of us here want to think, even for a split second, did I get my job because they wanted to check the box? Am I here because when there was a decision, one versus the other, they wanted to make a statement on diversity? We don't want that. We want to have our jobs because we're really darn good at what we do. We have a passion for it. We're subject matter experts, and they should have chosen us. But there are places in the world that don't think that way. And so I'm okay with quotas for that. I'm just not okay with them for sustained periods of time because we need to make sure that we've done our bit. For all of us, then, it's incumbent on us to make sure that we have gatherings like this and that we spend time making sure we know who each other are and support each other.
In conclusion, I think it's extremely important that we make a change regarding the lack of female representation in places like the workforce. Quotas are a start, but they are not being viewed as such. Most people think there's a legitimate discriminatory motive against women in the workplace and that quotas are the end solution. However, this will only lead to more problems. It could potentially promote women to positions that they're not particularly qualified for. Also, no woman wants to reach a point of success in her career questioning whether she's there because she's qualified and can do the best job or because she had to be hired so the company could meet their numbers. All this idea of long-term legal quotas promotes is symbolizing women and discrimination against men. What we need to do is just acknowledge that men and women are in fact different and there's nothing we can do about it, so we might as well stop painting it as sexism and start using it to society's benefit.